Lovely people, on today's episode we put the South African Constitution under the microscope. Now, South Africa has had constitutions before. Did you know that? The one we have now is our fifth. The very first constitution was the Treaty of Vereniging, which ended the Anglo-Boer War in 1902. But I think it was more of a peace treaty, like you palms, peace off, back to England. The second and third constitutions were adopted in 1910 and 1961, respectively, and both of these excluded the rights of people of color. Not cool, bruh. Not cool. In 1983, the third constitution was passed by government, and it created the tricameral parliament, which meant there was a separate parliament for whites, coloreds, and Indians, but no representation for blacks. Okay? Hectic. People of color be like, wati parliament? No. The government was like, tricameral parliament. People of color be like, camel parliament? The government be like, yeah, welcome to hump day, bitches. But thank goodness, as the 80s were ending, people had had enough, people. They had had enough of the bad here and the bad ideas like communism and segregation. In 1990, Nelson Mandela was released from prison, and then President F.W. de Klerk repealed all apartheid legislation. In 1993, the interim constitution was adopted, and this enfranchised people of color, paving the way for a democratic South Africa. In 1994, Madiba became our first black president. And in 1996, the Constitution finally came into effect and became the supreme law in South Africa. It was a lekker time, man. Like all the spur ads suddenly showed whites, blacks, and coloreds, and Indians laughing together at the Salad Valley. You know, Simunye, we are one. The Chester Williams made the South African rugby team. So that was good. But it was all a bit of a mirage. Yes, we were suddenly a democracy with equal rights for all, a constitution admired all over the world, and a respected president like no other. But the shit was in the post. You don't become a true democracy and eradicate decades of systemic inequality overnight. Look at America. 60 years after Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and the Black Civil Rights Movement, 60 years, they still have the Ku Klux Klan walking the streets. 60 years after that. I've always wondered how hard it must be for these guys who wear glasses to join the KKK. I mean, I remember during COVID when you wore your mask with the glasses, it would steam up. Shame, bruh. It must be tough under those white supremacist hoods. Unless you go without your glasses, but then you run the risk of walking into a burning cross. This is never a good thing. Never a good way to go. But anyway, back to South Africa. In 1994, we had this unbridled optimism. The unbridled optimism of a rainbow nation singing Ebony and Ivory. But 28 years later, millions still live in poverty, and unemployment is at 46.6%. And we have political opportunists calling for changes to our constitution. First of all, let's understand what a constitution is and does. The constitution defines the structure of government and sets out the rights and duties of its citizens. Our constitution has helped bring about social, economic, and civic justice. But when it comes to bringing about a just society, it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street, people. You can't sit back like Andrew Ridgeley in Wham. That's a disturbing picture. Our constitution is not going to do all the work for us. It's not. Our constitution empowers us to achieve a just society. It cements our rights and duties in the law and provides us with tools to take them forward, far more than other constitutions. Other constitutions around the world or any imaginary alternative. Most constitutions around the world are conservative. They're conservative, preserving the current balance of power and the distribution of resources. South Africa's constitution is not. We have very rich constitutional jurisprudence. And that's Latin for legal science or philosophy. We have rich jurisprudence on equality that safeguards against discrimination from the state, but also from private parties. And very importantly, this jurisprudence permits affirmative action. It does. None of that exists in the United States or the UK or most European constitutional systems. In these countries, affirmative action is barely legal, bruh. And there's only the thinnest of protection against discrimination. We have a very powerful equality tool, but it doesn't magically use itself. It's for us to use. In a quarter of a century, we have only just dipped our toes into the potential of our Bill of Rights and the freedoms it gives us. And dipping a toe in isn't enough anymore. We need to wade in, swim in. You know, when you get in about waist high, then you think, okay, it's maybe okay to pee now. I mean, I've heard from other people, but they say that no one will see me pee because they think it's water, and then you just pee, and they just pee, not you, not me. They, thinking no one is any the wiser. But you mustn't do that, you know. Wade all the way in. Don't pee in our constitutional pool. Get your head under. Get involved. Dive in, people. Dive in. Swim around. It's not surprising that our constitution is held in such high esteem all over the world. Our rights are sacrosanct. In South Africa, you cannot be evicted if it means you are rendered homeless. You can't be evicted. The state is required to provide textbooks and safe classrooms. It's supposed to do that. It's supposed to provide water, electricity, and healthcare. And Section 25 demands redistribution and redress of property. And though some of the state's execution of the duties are often below par, the Constitution does empower us to demand more. That's what we're supposed to do, to demand that the state does better. And so we must. We cannot idly stand by and say our Constitution doesn't work. It's a promise to us. We have to remember the progress and victories we have made because of our Constitution, not in spite of it. Examples of socioeconomic justice that would never happen or even be conceivable in many other countries in Africa and around the world. Many of these victories are not always reported on by the media, especially not Iqbal Survey's media team. I mean, yes, our Constitution can deliver basic human rights, but can it compete with a woman who delivered 10 imaginary babies? I don't know. But worry not, our Constitutional Court is open for business, people, and it's here for us. It is. Did you know that the Constitutional Court has made almost 1,000 decisions? Recently, a man was evicted from his Cape Town home while he was in the bath. Like, I don't even know how that happened, right? The courts intervened and reversed the eviction with compensation for the residents before they could get wrinkly in the bath. Okay, it wasn't that fast, but they did it quick. Flashback to 2002 when the Treatment Action Campaign took then Health Minister, yes, the same one who believed garlic and beetroot could cure AIDS, took it to court for allegedly violating the right to access to healthcare and to demand medication be available to HIV patients. As a result of these campaigns, the TAC was able to reduce the price of medicines, prevent hundreds of thousands of HIV-related deaths, but also to force significant additional resources into the health system and towards the poor. As for constitutional institutions, the Constitution demands that they function well to realize human rights, that they are free of corruption, that they are led by people with integrity. Under the Constitution, courts have removed compromised prosecution heads, an unfit head of the Hawks, and a former head of police crime intelligence. Our Constitution also played a role in the process to impeach former President Jacob Zuma, who resigned with that impeachment hanging over his head, bruh, like a shower head cap. So it's not surprising that the Zuma faction, aka the RET faction, are not fans of our Constitution and say it's not working for Africans. Yeah, it's not working in favor of your corruption. They would prefer a revolution. Not going to happen on our watch, scalums. But here's what revolutionary act each of us can take. Advance your struggle under the Constitution. Under our Constitution, our special Constitution. Whether you are an individual, an activist, part of a community or social movement or civil society organization, invoke the Constitution in the streets, the legislature, and the courts to confront privilege, abuse of power, and injustice. Many of these struggles under the Constitution will be unseen. They'll be unglamorous. They'll be unpublicized. That does not mean our Constitution is broken or dead. It's up to us to breathe life into our constitution and keep our democracy alive. And what a lekker country it is, people. You know, a lot of oaks are packing for Perth or leaving for London or whatever the latest alliteration is. And I always say the grass looks greener on the other side because it's fertilized with bullshit. Yeah, man. Every place has its shit, and you have to decide what's your favorite flavor of shit sandwich. And my favorite flavor is South African, with its big skies and its friendly people and its lekker braaivleis. So let's not run away, guys. Let's stand together, defend our democracy, and let's prove to the world that we are the beacon of hope that all see us to be. Now, I've told you what I think. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Express yourself, your freedom of speech, enshrined in the Constitution of South Africa. This has been a great season of Under the Microscope. I hope we get to do it again. I'm Dr. Riaad Musa. I'll see you next time.